Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who Classic we had Tomb of the Cybermen. Again. What happened on that one?
Well, we now understand a lot more about it than the first time around. But the Doctor and Jamie and Victoria land on a planet where there's this archaeological expedition to find what they apparently think is the Tomb of the Cybermen, if I recall that correctly.
Yeah.
But there's some booby traps and some people get hurt and some people die. But it turns out that one of the guys who is, I don't know if you remember if he was funding the expedition or he was just one of the people, he wanted to have some kind of, agreement with the Cybermen. He was with a group of people called the Logicians, and they thought the Cybermen's strength and their superior intellect would create, this new Earth, and anyway, it all goes completely bonkers. And the Cybermen are sealed back into their frozen tomb, and the Doctor and Jamie and Victoria escape with their lives. If I recall correctly.
Yeah. And
hey, for once I remembered it.
Yeah. Now, granted, technically we didn't do that even a week ago, because we did that on Sunday. So, and also, just two small, and I mean very small developments. Jamie's legs are apparently always numb because he just wore his kilt and no pants under it. And Victoria is trigger happy. So,
and we did see something else too. These little miniature, I don't know what they were, roly-polies look like, but they were called Cybermats.
Yes.
And they were partially responsible for creating the Cybermen. I didn't exactly know what they were for.
Yeah, it was something about, I would assume, they help capture humans and then maybe start implanting stuff, and then the Cybermen finish the procedure.
And that was the, not the cliffhanger, but the little tag at the end, as the Cybermen are all entombed back in the ice, and the Doctor and everybody flies away. We see one of the little Cybermats wiggling around like it's still alive.
Yes. So, presumably that will be how we get them back, because, I assume, obviously they'll come back. I don't know when, though. So,
yeah, do we know if they reappear in Classic Who, or are they? We do know that they're in the New Who.
Yeah, well, they're at least by the time of the 5th Doctor, and I think they are in the 4th Doctor's era, because in that episode, Earthshock, they showed, all the Doctors that have dealt with him, or dealt with the Cybermen, and they didn't show the 3rd Doctor, but they did show the 4th, so don't know if they show up again in the 2nd Doctor's era, though. But it's entirely possible. They seem to be our new big Daleks, basically.
Yeah.
So,
and one thing we did say is the first time around that we saw them, we thought that their voices were not menacing at all, and now they have corrected that. Their voices are very menacing, but also very hard to understand.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult to understand them. It was actually once they got into low power mode and their voices were a tiny bit deeper and a bit slower, they were a lot easier to understand. So, yeah. This time we're moving on to one of 20,000 six-parters that we will have from now on. And only one of these episodes is complete. And that will be episode 2. Everything else is recons.
Oh,
so we are counting down the days to not having recons anymore. Which should happen... Well, it'll happen, I believe, sometime in Season 6. And we're in Season 5 now. So we are approaching it, slowly but surely. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. You got anything else?
No. For some reason, I keep thinking that right after the Unearthly Child, that opening thing, when they landed in the Himalayas, didn't we predict something about being wasn't one of those episodes called The Abominable Snowman or something?
Well, the thing was, it was after The Edge of Destruction, where it's they're in this really snowy place, and there's this giant footprint, and that ended up being, I guess, the Mongols in Marco Polo. But then the next episode we watched was The Web of Fear, and that had the Yetis in it. Presumably this will be the introduction of the Yetis. This one is called The Abominable Snowman.
All right, well, let's certainly find out.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this episode. Here we go.
twisted remains of the rifle lay scattered on the ground. I was going to say, the twisted remains of the other men. Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln. All right, they're new.
Yeah.
I don't believe it. Marvelous!
It's always nice to get
After all
generic
this
shots
time,
of the
what's
doctor.
so marvelous about that? Thank you. Come along.
Hey, Doctor, would you look at these? You never told me you had these.
No, Jamie.
Hey,
No.
I could fix those easily.
Yes, I was afraid of that.
Jamie, you're not as bad as the doctor.
Come along. Help me find
He specifically kept those away from Jamie.
Considerably if we knew what we were looking
I think I'll go and have a scout around. Now, you two find the men. It's very important.
Oh, for
It's
why
interesting.
do you
He
want
has this
down
fur
there,
coat
it's
because
going
he's
to
in the
guarantee
Himalayas,
us the
but
welcome of a lifetime.
last episode he just had a cape and he was fine.
it down? Now, if I
Victoria
turn
switches
this
on the
to
scanner.
left, should-
Easy.
Aha, that's it.
Oh, good job.
Be interested to know where these exterior scenes were filmed.
Yeah.
So the Yeti has 3 toes like a bird.
Well,
Not far from the creature, the doctor is exploring. The doctor has reached the entrance to Deathson Monastery.
this monastery needs a better frame rate.
He looks around the courtyard, which seems to be deserted.
These are the remains of the Marco Polo set.
Ah, the thin Buddha. That's actually more accurate than the round one that people normally see. He stands for a moment, looks pensively at the Buddha.
He's probably friends with him.
Take him away.
But this is ridiculous!
The monks lead him
Why don't you
away.
listen to me? What
It
do you
was
think?
10, 15
Watching
minutes
carefully,
before someone got
Grissom.
captured.
The door of the cell is opened, and the doctor is thrown in. Well, that's hardly the Buddhist way.
That'll be where the beastie lives, right enough. And it's as far as we're going.
Oh, we can't turn back now.
Ah, we can and we will. It could be dangerous.
How do you know? It may be quite harmless. Jamie.
No, we're going back. I mean it.
Jamie, look.
Hey! Wait a minute.
Jamie spots
What is
something
it?
in the darkness of the cave.
Well, it might not be an animal's den after all. I'm going to take a closer look.
Oh, but Jamie.
Look, a wild animal's one thing. I'm not afraid of a man. Well, this is a man's work, all right.
Oh, let's go back, Jamie.
Well, they have completely flipped.
Jamie.
You laughed at me in the press, didn't you? Travers, the mad anthropologist. Oh, lad. Even my own society wouldn't finance me.
There's a really old dad joke that goes here. I wanted to be a monk, but I never got the chance.
Quick! We must decide now.
No, priest song. After our meditations, we will consult.
After the meditations. The creature grabs the scimitar from him and snaps it in two.
It'll kill you.
The creature lumbers forward. Well, I think we see where that's going. Alright, now. Travers, Jack Watling, comes back later
Yes.
in
The Web of Fear.
The Web of Fear
Yes.
with the Yeti.
Exactly. So,
And Deborah Watling
is his daughter.
is his daughter.
Yes.
Okay. Now there's one other actor that seemed familiar. They're not the lead bad guy, but one of the guys who was questioning him, not Chris Hong. Yeti, Reg Whitehead. Good job, Reg. All right, I don't know what his name was. He just looked very familiar, like we had seen him before on this, on the Doctor Who somewhere.
Well, you know, there's nothing like a slow burn Doctor Who episode.
Well, it's certainly not as compelling as Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yeah.
And, of course, the red herring or the MacGuffin, whatever you want to call it here, has to be that bell. There has to be some importance about that bell. Whether it controls the Yeti or I don't know, in having it in his possession will make the abbot say this man is a good man. I don't know, but obviously that's the one thing that sticks out that they have not yet completely explained.
Yeah. Now, see, I don't remember if they said in Web of Fear that, like, the Yetis were always, like, robots or something, because I think they were in that episode. So I don't know if that's, like, if that's still the same here, like, we're still going with the Great Intelligence and stuff, or if it's just, no, when the Great Intelligence comes in the Web of Fear, they just happen to choose Yetis. Also, Travers is also there. Which is a huge coincidence, but it could be that. These are actual Yetis.
Yeah.
So...
And especially considering the Cybermen and some of the other villains, the Yeti costumes, at least just that little glimpse we saw there at the end, that's really, I mean, I want to say it's bad, but it's so ill-fitting. I mean, it's almost comical.
Well, the weird thing is, that was CG at the end there. At least I'm pretty positive that was a CG recreation. But the thing is, next episode is good, so they should have footage of that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe it'll look better in the real episode.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that was CG, but I can't really tell.
And there's one other episode later on where we had some villains that look like, human-sized raspberries or something like that. Do you remember that one where they look like gigantic mounds of Jell-O?
Oh, that was in the Three Doctors. Yeah. Those weird...
Because up till this point, the villains, I mean, even the War Machine, which was basically just a, knockoff Dalek.
Yeah.
They do have some menace about them, but that didn't look frightening at all. That would have been laughable to me, even as a teenager. I'd have looked at it and go, well, no, Abominable Snowman, first of all, should be white. Because, if it were that dark, he would stand out in the snow all that time. And supposedly one of the reasons you can't find them is because they blend in with the environment. So
Right. I mean, we could start talking about Bigfoot and conspiracies and stuff, but... Okay.
There's actually a Bigfoot festival every year in Oklahoma.
What do you do? You just sit around being like, you guys believe in Bigfoot? Yeah. All right.
Well, part of it is, the fun and games. They are making somewhat a joke out of it. But there's a little town called, I think it's called Onabi or Onabi or something, Onabi, down in far southeastern Oklahoma. They do it the first weekend of October every year. But they do have a conference of cryptozoologists. These are the people who study the Yeti and the Sasquatch and the Chupacabra and the Wendigo and all those other things. So it is semi-scientific, but it's also just played mostly for jokes.
Yeah. You know what I just thought of with you having trouble pronouncing that town's name? We always have our thing of British words that are weird or, we don't pronounce them the same. I would love to see British people try to name Oklahoma towns.
Oh, yeah.
Because they get confusing even if you live here.
Yeah.
Like, you go up to the northeast, where do you hit? Oh, that's Miami, right? Nope. That's not Miami. No. That's Miami.
Miami.
That I becomes an A. So.
But yeah, the thing is, the little town, it's spelled Honobia, which looks like Anobia, but I've seen one reference to it that says it's pronounced like Onabi, and another one that says it's pronounced Honubi. So,
yeah,
anyway.
That's the problem, is that whatever, if British people try to pronounce it, we can't really say if it's wrong or not, because nobody has a clear consensus.
Yeah, we have a Poto and a Godibo, and of course the infamous... We have a town called Maud and a town called Bowlegs, named after a Seminole chief named Billy Bowlegs. And the story is you have to go through Bowlegs to get to Maud, which is, rude in and of itself.
This is why the capital is as simple as it can be. It's Oklahoma City.
But it used to be Guthrie until Oklahoma City stole it.
Yeah. Well, at least Guthrie is pretty simple to pronounce, you know? Or if you have, like, Tulsa's simple. But Oklahoma City, which I remember one time I was watching a video that had, like, every state and their capital, and then I realized, oh, we're the only state in the entirety of the country where our capital is just our state name and city. Yeah. I was like, great job. We were really creative there.
There are other states that have the same name in a city, but they're not the capital. I mean, New York City being the most obvious one.
Yeah, so... anywho.
Completely off track.
Yeah.
Which is, what do we do?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
We've got to stop that thing somehow.
Oh, man, it's alive!
Only chance I get back.
Well, just that one tap. Alright, so I guess that's why they had to make that shot.
Yeah. It's the Grimace from McDonald's.
Oh, it's gritty. That scary thing.
What is this place? And what are those?
Oh, yeah. Those are the things that control the Yetis in the Web of Fear.
They're all glowing.
Oh, let's get away from here, Jamie.
Oh, if we can.
Jamie's clearly never seen Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, don't worry about that. It's quite dead.
You hope.
Good job.
Let's see a finger wiggle. There we go. Now, the hands and feet are very scary, but the rest of it is just kind of weird.
Well,
You have been here before?
That attack in 1630, what was the outcome?
You know something of our history.
Yes, a little.
That was also a dark period. It was then our holy Gunther was taken from us.
Oh, dear.
Victoria, the TARDIS is that way.
I know, but we must warn the doctor.
Look, Cameron, we don't know where he is. Run!
it's not exactly fast.
200 years or more, it has been lost to us. How came you by it?
1630, that makes this 1800s. Well, he did say or more. That was not a 19th century rifle.
Bring the Gunther to me, my son.
So maybe it is the Great Intelligence. Unless Buddha is canon.
Do not
That
be
headdress
afraid.
looks more like Incan or Peruvian than it does Buddhist.
And hasn't it occurred to you that, innocent or guilty, whatever's been killing your monks might very well kill me?
If you are innocent, then let us hope that we will have the time to rescue you.
The old Salem witch trial. If you're innocent, you will die.
What if I'm guilty?
Then we'll kill you.
Seems to be a lose-lose scenario to me.
It's what we call you catch-22. That's some catch, that catch-22. It's the best there is.
Come on, it can't be much further. Listen,
You know,
something's coming.
Victoria is a lot more, open-minded than Jamie is, because last time she had a short dress, now she has pants.
What are you doing here?
If you really want to capture one of these beasties, I think I have an idea that might just work.
Victoria? Victoria, I think this is one of those instances where discretion is the better part of valor. Jamie has an idea. Come along.
Jamie has an idea. Let's get out of here.
No, keep it back. I'm not ready for it yet. Keep it back. That's it. Stand by. Here it comes.
Their original plan to kill the beast was just hit it with sticks.
Right, hold the rope, quick! Quick on the deck!
Hit it with a pointed stick.
Oh, I crapped its balls out. That's not a ball. Is it? No, it is.
Yeah.
It was just in the mud. Couldn't see it well. Oh yeah, I forgot about the beeping. Alright. That's part 2.
Okay.
Well, it is the Great Intelligence. I guess posing as Buddha, or or just a voice at least.
Just a voice at the moment.
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz. Emperor
Yeah.
Palpatine. I sense a great disturbance in the Force.
Yeah. Yeah. Not much else to say on that one. We're going to have a very short discussion, I feel like.
Yeah, well, again, there's a whole lot of action, but very little advancement of the plot. We did get the revelation of what appears to be the Great Intelligence. We have captured one of the beasties, and it turns out to be, the Doctor knows it's a robot. But beyond that, I mean, you had Travers going out, finding Jamie and Victoria, and then coming back. It's obviously necessary because he wanted to find out where they were from, but again, that probably took up about 5 minutes worth of script that it wasn't necessary to be shown. So anyway, not an incredibly tight script. There's nothing wrong with it, but compared to what we just watched with Tomb of the Cybermen, this is really kind of slow moving.
And maybe part of it is that some of the mystery is gone because we do already know from watching the Web of Fear. It's like, okay, that's clearly the Great Intelligence. We already knew the Yetis were robots. So some of that is kind of lost. We already know that. We're just waiting for the episodes to figure that out. But even still, there's just a lot of just quiet moments.
Yeah.
So, like, even in this, a completed episode, it was still like, okay, let's move on.
I honestly do not remember beeping orbs from the Web of Fear.
Well, I remember them because I remember you not liking them.
No.
So, it's been about a year since we watched that episode.
You say this creature is not a real Yeti? It's metal. It's been made and sent against us. Why? Why does someone wish harm to the monks of Death's End? I will trust no stranger until these questions are answered. Well, I'll just go and get a bit of shut-eye. Good night, all.
Sure, walk away from the greatest discovery of your life and go get some shut-eye.
Yeah.
Rapachan. Yes, Grissom. Stand guard at the gate. No one is to
These
leave
mustaches
the
are amazing.
Let's follow him.
No, it is forbidden. No one but the abbot may enter.
Oh,
No one!
don't you want to know what he looks like? Oh, surely you do. Come on.
No, Miss Victoria, can't you understand it is impossible?
I don't see.
No, you do not.
See, Barbara would have never done that.
I have been brought up in the path of obedience.
Very
No,
well.
but Susan would have.
Yeah. Padmasambhava reaches out his hand to the board. He moves 2 Yeti models towards the monastery gate.
You can't just drop a name on us like that.
They came to get their ball back.
One way of putting it.
Then the great intelligence will focus upon this planet. Soon it will begin to grow, and at last take on physical form. Go now.
I was thinking that there seemed to have been 2 voices,
Do
not
as
just
I
one.
have asked.
Oh no, it's a Chumbly.
Ugh. Man, I just put that in a recent Doctor Who episode too.
The sound that you heard.
It came from the sphere, I swear it.
Excuse us, please.
Sapan and wrench and leave. Victoria hesitates, then walks off towards the inner sanctum. Well, of course she does.
The CG doesn't do fur very well. They look more like very large spacesuits.
Victoria! My son, what is the matter?
Oh, Sapan, I can't find her. I think she may have... Miss Victoria!
Well, you may have noticed I yawned a couple of times during that.
I did too.
Oh, okay. Well, again, it's
It's not bad.
Not bad. It's just not particularly engrossing. It's, again, maybe it's because we just watched a rather intriguing episode, the Two Men the Cybermen, and this just, again, I think this is suffering from being a 6-parter when it could have easily been edited down to a 4-parter.
Yeah. And again, maybe part of it is, yes, we do know the Great Intelligence, and we know pretty much how the Yetis work, but there is something new in there that it is 2 separate voices, it seems like, which at first I thought it was just, there was the nicer voice that was, just like, oh, I'm just the nicer voice, but then when everyone's gone, it's like, oh, now I can be the more evil voice. But it does seem to be 2 separate voices. There's the master that's trying to bring the Great Intelligence to life, basically. So
I wonder if the voice is credited there.
Maybe. Well, I think they had one of the voices credited, the really long name, but that's about it. It could possibly be just the same voice actor, basically. So, okay, we can go into the notes. So, interesting thing, last episode, while I was editing it, I realized, wow, we talked for a while, and maybe part of that was because of our Twitter Q&A that we did in there. This might be a really short episode, actually, because we can talk about some of this, but there's only so much I feel like we can talk about.
And we didn't really say much about the set, although the sets, I mean, even if they are leftovers from Marco Polo or something else, the sets are nice. The exterior, though, the more I get to thinking about it, did you notice there's no snow on the ground?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're in the Himalayas, there's going to be snow. They're called the Abominable Snowmen, not the Abominable Dirt Men. So... and I understand, they're filming in Great Britain somewhere, but still, the exterior shots lead you to believe this isn't as cold as the Himalayas would be. Now, again, granted, it's not in the higher parts, it's in the Tibetan Plateau area, but still, the fact that there's nothing to show how cold it should be there, other than, the doctor wearing his big fur coat, so he looks like a Yeti, and Jamie and Victoria wearing their little outfits. But you'll notice that none of the monks or the warriors, when they go outside, have any kind of extra clothing on. So that's just a nagging little thing that the more I watched it, I went, wait a minute, what's going on there?
Yeah. So we have the monastery, which apparently the Doctor's been to before. I guess that's another one of those pre-Doctor Who stories.
Yeah. And the voice did say he had encountered the Doctor before.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, there was that one little thing about, so he's come back or something like that.
Yeah, so presumably, I guess the Great Intelligence has met the Doctor before, which is interesting. That's sort of we haven't really had that sort of thing, because like even the Daleks or the Cybermen, they're established in the show. So something even further back in the Doctor's timeline
although they might mention that in the next 3 episodes about how they had met. So.
Yeah. And I suppose it's also possible that perhaps, it could have been, a story we just didn't see that takes place after they left 1963. Or maybe it is something like, well, yes, they've met the Doctor before, but the Doctor hasn't gone through that yet. So,
okay.
Which is possible. That actually comes up again with the Great Intelligence because... they actually bring back the Great Intelligence in the 11th Doctor's era, and he accidentally gives them the idea to, go to the London Underground in the Web of Fear, and then the Great Intelligence actually becomes like a pretty big, like season villain for the 11th Doctor, and does a whole thing which we don't need to go too far into. So it could be that they are sort of setting up either the Doctor will meet the Great Intelligence in the future for the first time, or it is just a sort of pre-Doctor Who sort of thing. But he has... but no, that doesn't work, because he's already been here, which is how he stole the bell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that's it.
Now, did he steal the bell? Because they haven't... He came into possession of it, but why would he steal the bell? That makes no sense.
I think he accidentally stole it, and he just didn't realize that he had stolen it. So, I guess something like that, because he knew he took it, so he must have thought that maybe it was given away purposely, and then he comes back and is like, oh, well, whoever stole the bell, and he's like, oh, I thought I was a gift. Oh, well. Or maybe he just thought it was a bell and didn't think anything of it. So, I wrote down how cautious Jamie was, until he wasn't. And, he really was going hard on, trying to, stay with the TARDIS and everything and stay out of the caves. Until then, he thinks, oh, well, he sees wood in the caves and he's like, oh, it must be man-made. Then he's willing to go in. But as soon as they see, it's like, oh, it could be a man-made cave. Then Victoria's willing to, be a bit more cautious.
Yeah, the two writers, again, may have written this before Jamie and Victoria came on. Maybe this was a Ben and Polly thing, or so, because we've heard a lot of that this story was originally intended for these companions and then had to be rewritten. So these two guys don't seem to have a real strong grasp on Jamie and Victoria.
Now, granted, I mean, Victoria you can kind of get away with because we're still pretty early with her, so we haven't really defined her character too much. The most we have is, well, her being a bit trigger happy, So maybe, this, I guess the curiosity that she seems to have with leaving the TARDIS and eventually trying to find the inner sanctum, that could be sort of left over from Polly or maybe even Dodo, for all we know. So, let's see. We got Travers and the Yeti, which again, it's interesting to see, how this will lead into the Web of Fear. So, and I guess that's just sort of that. We got the bell, the great intelligence.
We're stretching here.
Really powering through the notes. Okay, I think at one point the great intelligence, though, did call the Doctor a friend.
He did, yes.
Yeah, so I'm curious, what that's about. Maybe, I mean, who knows, maybe... He did mention, the Doctor is someone of great intelligence, and that was the whole thing in the Web of Fear, was that he wanted the Doctor's intelligence for his own. So maybe they're starting that, or maybe he's just trying to, at this point, it's just sort of allies instead of just sort of taking over his intelligence. I'm fighting off a sneeze, and it's driving me nuts, Snow. So, anyway.
Say, do you have any tissues in here?
Nah, that's all right.
All right.
Okay. So, maybe there's something like that, because we also, when we watch Web of Fear, they didn't have this plan of bringing the great intelligence to flesh, basically. So that is a bit different. So I'm curious if we'll kind of see how we go from this plan to eventually in the Web of Fear, which is 3 episodes from now, of, how does he come up with the idea of, I need to take the Doctor's intelligence? Yeah. So, let's see. Jamie had an idea. Oh, that was a funny moment where it's like, oh, Jamie has an idea. We should get back. Which, I mean, they haven't played that up too much where it's like, oh, every time Jamie gets an idea, you gotta be worried. But it was still a funny moment. Let's see. The Yetis are robots, but we knew that, obviously. Yeah. It is interesting, because last episode we had that one question that was like, oh, do you feel spoiled on things because of how we watched the episodes? And we said, no, it's interesting to, see the context and stuff. And then we watched this episode, and it's like, well, we kind of know some of the mysteries already. It's like, oh, dang it.
Yeah, the other thing about that, again, it goes back to the costuming for the Yeti. They don't, in any way, shape, or form, move like robots. So they're obviously very realistic, almost android type things, because they're able to move very fluidly. but still, like you said, look like a furry spacesuit.
Yeah,
and that's just they don't appear menacing. They are. I don't want to say that they're laughable, but they're so not menacing. They're other than they got the chicken claws or whatever that was. They don't appear to have any kind of face. They're as shapeless as the grimace in the McDonald's Happy Meals toys.
Yeah.
And so again, even as a 15 or 16-year-old, I would not have been intimidated or afraid of them, and I don't think that's what they were going for here. I mean, and they're not mysterious in any way either. If they had moved perhaps a little bit more like robots, then you could say, wait a minute, these appear to be organic, and yet they're moving like robots, then that might have been some mystery. But right now, even if we didn't know what we already know about Web of Fear, I'm looking at these guys going, I don't understand this. Unless they're going to explain it in the next 3 episodes, I don't understand why anybody would be afraid of them, other than the fact that they obviously have great strength because tossed all the guards, all the warriors aside when they tried to capture that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think, like, is there anything I could add to that? Nope. No. I got nothing I can really add to that. So, I did write down the board of how they're controlling the Yetis with the almost chessboard, but really just a map. I thought that was interesting. It does sort of, again, lend it. It's like, okay, there are 2 different sort of people. There's this master with a really long name, and then there's the separate great intelligence. So, I think that's very interesting. I also was thinking, like, obviously, who's the main, not the abbot, but the guy who's, always sort of against the doctor in this one. What was his name?
Oh, no, Songston is the abbot.
Yeah.
I don't know, you could back it up there and we could...
Yeah. Let's see what I can do here. A sec.
I think she made Miss Victoria!
Just give it a second. Yeah, the CG on those Yetis is kind of hit and miss.
Cresong.
That was it, yeah.
And by the way, not a single Asian actor. They all... Norman Jones, Bob Smith, all these incredibly normal Anglo-Saxon type names. And again, I realize that it wasn't a huge thing, but we're now into at least 67 or 68.
Yeah.
And, and again, I hate to keep bringing up the comparison to Star Trek, but Roddenberry was beginning to become aware that, in the future, that there would be a more inclusive society. So he had, Sulu and Chekhov and Uhura and, and the alien Spock. So it seems kind of odd to be still stuck with what appear to be obviously English actors playing Asian characters.
Yeah. I mean, at least with some of them, like Cresong, it's like they at least like make him up to look a little better. It's like, he's got the weird, parted mustache or whatever, and he's got the hat and stuff. The abbot looks horrible. That looks like just whatever producer that they just got in from The Office and put him in that giant, headpiece. So,
which again looks way more Incan than it does. And I've never seen anything from the Buddhist monasteries, from Tibetan or anything that had that kind of a headdress. So again, it makes you wonder what kind of research did the costumer do. Now I understand the little thing on the shoulders. That's again very, I don't know, East Asian, because there's a lot of architecture that the corners of the houses have that. So that's kind of a nod to the Asian influence there. But and again that I think it's called a Fu Manchu, although normally a Fu Manchu would grow a little bit longer. But again, it's really striking that even this late in the 60s that they would be having English actors playing Asian characters.
Yeah. So the whole thing with Cresong, obviously he's that character. He's our Tegana that we've had since season 1, serial 4.
Yeah.
He's that character's like, oh, he's the one there that doesn't like the Doctor, and he's going to go against him. But I like he seems to have no idea what's happening with the Great Intelligence. So I thought that was sort of an interesting way of doing that. It's like, okay, he's not the one. It's like, oh, he's keeping secrets. He's working with the actual bad guy. And, that's why he's the enemy of the Doctor. It's like, no, he is just he's a concerned guy.
Yeah.
And he is a bit more cautious about outsiders.
Yeah. His job is to protect the monastery.
Yeah. So I did like that because it's like, okay, yeah, he has nothing to do with the abbot and the Great Intelligence and stuff. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Oh, that's it. Because the other thing I wrote down was the 2 voices, but we already talked about that.
Yeah. Well, sorry. We hope you're getting your money's worth out of this one.
For most people that just watch it on YouTube, it's fine. I guess the only other thing, which I didn't fully write down, but I guess just Victoria's curiosity in getting to the inner sanctum.
Yeah.
It does seem like, I don't know, because you didn't really get a lot of that in Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yeah.
Although she wanted to go with them, down the hatch, but the Doctor told her to stay up there, grab a gun, keep an eye on people. But just the large amount of curiosity she has in this one does seem a little odd. And like you said, it's like, oh, well, that's not something Barbara would have done, but it would be something like I could see Susan doing that. But even then, Susan or Vicky or Dodo, even Polly, it's like I feel like at a point they would stop. Like she was very insistent on finding that room.
Yeah.
So
and again, because first of all we had Barbara, and then we had the damsel in distress, which Barbara never was. Of course, Susan was. But then to get Polly, and Polly was, to me, next to Barbara, probably the one who was the new template, the what I was hoping that they were going to go for there. But now, and it's nothing against Victoria the actress, it's just they're not writing her so far the way they had written Polly, and that's somewhat unfortunate because Dodo never really contributed much to the story. Vicky, the fact that she was from the future and that she was very, very intelligent because that's the way that they were raised at that point. That was an interesting twist. But just going back, see, again, this is where the girl from the late 1800s is beginning to wear a little thin because, you can't even say, well, this is the beginning of the, the feminine independence movement because she doesn't seem to have any part of that. I mean, she seems to be a young girl who will not understand that when they say don't go in there, you shouldn't go in there. Yeah, it's becoming a little more stereotypical than we've been used to in the last companion with Polly.
Yeah, and with this episode, the pacing has been very, very slow. And while there are aliens here, I don't want to say like they're in the background, but they're yetis. Even if they're robots, they are still yetis. It really does feel like a First Doctor sort of episode where it's like, okay, the First Doctor is here. He just wanted to go back to his place. Oh, he gets kidnapped. Steven wants to stay with the TARDIS, but Dodo's curiosity is getting to her. She's trying to go find this inner sanctum, and Steven has to fight a Yeti or something. So I don't know. Maybe it is, or maybe just, these two writers, they were more used to First Doctor episodes. They weren't ready. They didn't know how to do the Second Doctor, even though he's already been on for almost a full season by this point. Yeah. So you would think that they would be able to write an actual Second Doctor episode, but this does feel a bit more like the First Doctor.
So to me, again, this is something where if there was what we used to call a script doctor, that somebody who was submitted, that these two authors would submit their script to him, and he'd look at it and he'd read it through and go, "Ooh, this really would have been perfect for Hartnell, but we've got to make some changes. We got to juice it up. We got to change this, that, and the other thing to make it fit with the Second Doctor." And if there is a script doctor or a script editor or something like that, doesn't seem, at least so far. Again, we haven't seen the last 3 episodes, but doesn't seem to be working that way because this is really not as good, not only as the Tomb of the Cybermen, but even going back to the evil of the Daleks and things like that. We were building up. We had some really good episodes there, some good serials with the Second Doctor, and now we're back to one where it's kind of clunky.
Yeah, like even some of it, like the joke of, oh, Jamie has an idea, we should go. Like I could almost see the First Doctor doing that. It's like Steven's like, oh, don't worry, Doctor, I have an idea to capture. It's like, oh, really? Oh, well, this ought to be interesting, and they just sort of move away. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's not bad. It's just sort of slow and strange. So, I don't know. Oh well, we'll have to see next week if they pull it all together. So. That is pretty much it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, you can click on the playlist. You can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media. Links below in the description. See you guys later.